Jolly, the Accidental Author. Very, very excited to have another fabulous author with me for this author interview. Now, this is a very, very special lady because she's not only talking about her first book, but just released her second book. So I'm very, very excited to have Gemma Farley on the interview. Hello, Gemma.
Hi, Andrew. How's it going today?
Very, very well. Congratulations on your second book.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to have it out and get it out and being read by people.
Wonderful. So first book was The Stolen God.
That's correct.
And the second book, which has just been released, is The Stolen God, Power's Truth.
Exactly.
So we look forward to hearing about it, but let's have a look at your books, Gemma, just so people know what we're talking about.
Sure. So the first one we've got here is The Stolen God. So very excited seeing that come to light and be shared and read by several people and had some very lovely reviews. And the sequel, which is called The Stolen God, Power's Truth, is now out and ready to be read. And it's already been read by a couple of people as well, which has been nice and some very positive feedback on that. And nice to see that evolution and continuation of the story.
That's wonderful. So, Gemma, like writing one book is an incredible achievement, but how does it feel? How did it feel when that second book came out? Because, I mean, writing one book, I mean, a lot of people go, oh, anyone can write one book, but then to go through that process again, because obviously can be a challenging process at times. How did it feel to have that second book come out?
Yeah, it was a challenging process to sort of get it out because you get nervous about it, but the feeling of actually having it released in my hand, sitting on the shelf right next to book one, knowing that it wasn't just a one-hit wonder, it's actually a reality now.
Yeah.
It actually feels more real to say, yeah, I'm an author, and actually have that sort of available there to show people.
Brilliant. And I understand number 3 is on the way.
Number 3 is on the way, being quickly written at the moment, and I'm already getting people asking me questions who have read the first one and second one about how it's going to end and where it's going to go, and
obviously you're telling them you're going to have to wait for the third book to come out.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had a few people going, I don't want to have to wait, just tell me.
So let's talk about the books first. So Gemma, tell us a little bit about them. Tell us a little bit about the genre, tell us about the story, tell us about what inspired you to write them, and just to give us a bit of an idea of what we're talking about.
Definitely. So the story's centered around gods and mortals. It's a fantasy fiction novel. At the center of it, there's two central characters, Bart and Christy, and it's a story that sort of evolves around them and their relationship developing, as well as in the first book, the reality of a civil war that's brewing between the two factions in the mortal world. You don't see much of the gods in the first book. That's more of an evolution in the second book, but the story centers on how one of the individuals actually ends up becoming a god, or revealing themselves as a god, and the return of the gods is then part of book 2. So it's quite an engaging story because it's a world of my own creation. So there's no direct correlation to our world or another fantasy world. It's very much my own creation. So it means that I, as an author, have a lot of flexibility with where I take the characters, what I do with the story, how the world interacts. So it makes it for quite a fun process as an author to actually write it that way. So there's nothing that's preventing me from going from one direction to the next. So.
Yeah, and that is the I guess the wonderful thing about writing a fiction book. You can do whatever you want. So it's got to be busy in your head, Gemma. There's a lot happening in there.
It's also quite entertaining because I have these stories going on, and if I'm bored in a meeting at work, then I can sort of switch over and change by myself.
Direction. That's wonderful. What would you say? What is the most engaging part of your book? What is it intrigue? Is it mystery? Is it suspense? What is it that you feel like is keeping the reader going through certainly the first book into the next book, and then obviously you've got people waiting for the third book already.
Yeah.
What is it that keeps them moving through, do you think?
I think there's a couple of things that do. In the first book, I think it's learning about the world and the characters, and obviously there is an element of intrigue there as to who the god on the mortal realm is, and how that is going to come to pass. You know, a civil war is quite intense, and the culmination of how the characters develop and the intrigues that go along with the characters there. Book 2 steps a little bit away from the intrigue aspect, but what continues on is the relationships and the characters. I start to expand on some of the, I guess, obviously the central characters continue to expand their relationship, but the auxiliary characters who are supporting, I start to delve in a little bit more into who they are, what their story is. And there's certainly been a lot of questions about one of the characters already, that I only really went into a surface level in book 1, but I started to expand their story in book 2. And that's more of the time that I set in book 2. It's a journey, it's a race against the clock to rescue someone. And
It's a real thrilling
and so there's a sense of urgency. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like a great read. We won't give too much away because we want people to actually jump on and buy them. So let's change gears for a second.
Sure.
There'll be a lot of people watching this, obviously interested about your book, but also interested about the process of writing a book. And I also know there are people that are writing trilogies, just as you are. Tell us a little bit about how the process of writing the book, how you found it, what were your challenges, how you overcame them, and how this actually feels for you now that you're a successful published author.
Yeah, sure. Well, for me, it kind of starts at the sort of the building block process. So starting with the concept, then starting with the chapter, the synopsis of the chapter, the key points of the chapter, and then writing every day. And I probably don't edit as much throughout the initial process as some people might. I actually write the entire story before I go back and read it as a whole. The story sometimes evolves a little bit as it goes along. I might find a chapter's getting too big. I have a pretty consistent chapter length, so I like to aim for about 3,000 words a chapter. I find that that's well paced for my type of writing and for my readers. Which is quite exciting. And it's consistency with that, following through that pattern as to what I want to tell, but not being afraid to let the story evolve that little bit, still staying true to where I want to go with it, but allowing the characters or the scenario to actually expand.
So you sort of really trusted yourself in the process and knowing that, you know, the story's in you and you're just happy just to write it and know that it will come out, which is a wonderful thing. And I think a lot of people who are watching that are writing a book can learn a lot from that, because we too often do stop and edit and read and assess it and fix it and modify it and polish it when it's not the right time. Just let it go. So what were some of the challenges that you found in this process?
Probably one of the challenges I found. Yeah, well, I guess probably one of the challenges is obviously keeping on going. You know, there's a lot of fear around actually finishing something. There's a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not it'll be any good, and whether or not anyone would like it. But when I thought about it and when I talked it out, I realized that it didn't matter if I was afraid. It was the main thing was to actually finish it and actually get that first draft done, get it out, and then put it out to the universe and see how it goes. So the one thing that a lot of people will find interesting is that I didn't actually show it to any of my family and friends before I showed it to potential publishers. I was more nervous about seeing their reactions on something that was so close and personal than I was a stranger. But the actual sense of achievement of getting that done was amazing. But I mean, I think there's a lot of things in life that we put in our ways and stop us from actually writing it. You know, I'm very busy. I have a full-time job. I'm starting up a business on the side. But, you know, you can always find, 15, 20, 30 minutes to sit down and write each day. And the thing I love most is actually writing. So, telling that story, getting it out of my head onto the page, and seeing the story itself expand.
Gemma, that's music to my ears, you saying that, because I'm the one that's telling everyone, 10, 15, 20 minutes every day, I'm glad someone else has said it. So thank you.
Yeah, no,
Hear it from
absolutely.
someone else. Okay, so the first one, let's talk about The Stolen God. The first time that arrived and you unpacked it and you picked it up and held it and sniffed the pages and looked at your name on it, how did that feel? Tell us the feeling that went along with that.
Yeah, it was an absolutely exhilarating experience to have that actually in front of me. It felt very surreal, like holding that book, and so I think one of the things was whether or not I would write under my name or a pseudonym. And I'm very glad I chose to write under my own name, because when you hold that book with your name on it and you say, I created that, there is nothing like it to hold something that you put your heart and soul into and your effort and time, and to see it come to reality. I think it's there's really no other feeling like it.
Yeah, wonderful. And the second one, how did it compare?
There were different challenges.
Was it a bit of a letdown? Was it, did it add another layer? What was the difference in feeling when you picked up the second one?
Yeah, there was definitely it was almost less believable than it was with the first one, which is quite bizarre, because sitting there holding there, and I was holding both books and kind of going like, wow, they're mine, I wrote them, here they are, people can read them, they can actually buy them and join in on the story that I've created. And it felt genuinely really amazing to have that second one there and put it on the shelf next to it and go, that's the first two books in that series, and there's going to be a lot more that join it. And
don't it look good, the two books together?
Oh yeah, fabulous. Yeah.
Wonderful. So what's your time frame on book 3, do you reckon?
Well, I'm hoping to have it finished being written by the end of this year. It's a longer book than the first two. So the first two are actually reasonably similar in length, only a little bit shorter in book 2 to book 1. There'll probably be about a third more for book 3. So taking a little bit longer to actually write that. So I'm hoping to have it finished by the end of this year, which means then through the publisher, and so probably end of next year, hopefully, if all goes to plan.
Good one.
Yeah.
Well, Gemma, congratulations again on not just your first book, but certainly your second, and obviously the third that's coming, and the wonderful success you've had with your books. I know you're going to be incredibly successful. So now people that obviously are going to want to buy your books, how do they do that? Where do they go to get your books?
Sure. If they're in Australia, they can actually go to my website. So that's www.gemmafarley.com. And you can get those. There's also links on my website to Amazon for ebooks, and that's both local and international, as well as for any international purchases. You can do that via Amazon or through my publisher's website, Austin Macaulay. A couple of local, if you're in the Adelaide, South Australia area, you'll be able to get those via Dymocks, Adelaide and Glenelg in store at this stage. So it's already out there.
So I want to encourage everyone that's watching this, order Gemma's first two books. By the time you've read the first two, the third one will be there ready for you. So Absolutely. That's putting a bit of pressure on you, Gemma. So you've got to get the third one done.
No, it's good to have the pressure.
By the time these people, they go, where's the next one? But look, congratulations again. Wonderful achievement.
Thank you very much.
You're an inspiring example of what's possible. As you said, I know you've got a very high profile job, which takes a lot of your time. You're starting a business. You've got a fluffy 4-legged baby that you've got to look after.
I do.
So you're a busy lady, yet you find the time to fulfill this dream to become a published author, and that is wonderfully inspiring. So good on you, Gemma. Very, very proud of everything that you've done.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So good luck with the rest of your writing journey, and I look forward to chatting to you when book 3 comes out. So we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Excellent.